Because ultimately expectations have to be met. If you look at the political landscape, is it really changing for women? And what is the inability of the forces that dead bodies surface but not the living people?
So I'm Payal Nath, the CEO and Director of Kadam Heart. We're working with people, we're working with emotions, we're working with hands, we're working with nature.
We are very clear, we want to commit to livelihoods, we want to commit to the planet, we want to impact 1 million artisans, which is 1 million families minimum.
Be the change that you want to see.
This and more. Streaming on News 9 Plus. News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
Welcome to News 9 Show, the South Indian. My name is Sudha Sadanan. As usual, I shall bring to you 9 top stories only from the south of India. Let me now begin with the first story coming up on your screens right now. Kerala High Court pulls up Kerala government, directs it to submit Hema Committee report in its entirety. All right, so that's our big story. Kerala High Court pulls up the government on Hema report. We have some excellent guests today who shall speak their mind out. I've been pursuing the Hema Committee report for almost a week, and I shall continue until there is some kind of an answer to it. After many delays, the Hema Committee report released on 19th August and highlighted the ugly underbelly of Malayalam cinema. At the center of it were women, both minors and adults, who are haunted by the paranoia of losing out on work, of being singled out if they ignored sex on demand made by the mafia dons of Malayalam cinema, no pay parity of course, and worse, the trauma of being pushed into a corner if one dared to speak out. Now, the report was delayed by 5 long years, and even if we take into account procedural delays, it is the general attitude of the Chief Minister Pinarayi and his government over the report that really rankles. And there are many occasions when he did appear to be detached about the fallout of the report. The opposition UDF has now asked the ruling government to present the entire report and not the one which in its present form is redacted. The other prickly issue is about how the Kerala police has ruled out legal action, citing the lack of specific details such as involved individuals or exact incidents. Then what is the point of this report, I want to ask? The other ironical situation is how the Women in Cinema Collective, or WCC, which was formed after the attack on an actress, has come out against the cyber attack against a founding member and senior artist of the group. In a statement released yesterday, the WCC said, and I am quoting them, "However, we strongly condemn the cyber attacks and belittling comments about senior women artists, including a founding member of the WCC, who's still a member, that undermines a woman's professional journey and experience, especially when they have stood in solidarity with survivors." Let's first hear from BJP leader V. Muralidharan on the ongoing proceedings of the Hema Committee report and the way he compares it to the general situation in another state, West Bengal.
Hema Committee report that has come out, which clearly mentions the atrocities committed against women in the film industry of Kerala, that has not helped in the state government opening its eyes.
All right, but we're getting some breaking news, and that is Prime Minister Modi in Ukraine. Take a look. Those are the live shots that we are getting right now. We'll get back to the debate in case we have time. There is Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the first Prime Minister or head of state from India to have arrived in Ukraine, and this is after they gained independence. A very, very crucial visit indeed from a strategic point of view as well as from the point of view of trade. There he is, Zelensky meeting the Indian contingent officials and bureaucrats and top officials. Prime Minister Modi and Zelensky there for a photo op, and there you can see both the leaders who are meeting even as we speak in Ukraine. And of course, Prime Minister Modi arrived today on a special train which is only used for those top leaders of the country, Joe Biden before him as well as Emmanuel Macron before him, who took the train. And this is Modi meeting the entire contingent in Ukraine, all the bureaucrats and the top officials, and of course a red carpet welcome as was expected for Prime Minister Modi. Along with Prime Minister Modi, we have Zelensky, and it is supposed to be a very, very crucial meeting even as we speak. Take a look at those visuals and I get back.
Шановний пане прем'єр-міністр Моді, для нас на сьогодні це велика честь приймати в Україні в день нашого державного прапора прем'єр-міністра Індії, дружньої Індії. Це дуже символічно, тому що це історичний момент, історичний візит. Це перший візит прем'єр-міністра Індії в незалежну Україну. Напередодні Дня Незалежності цей візит, він дійсно дуже дружній, важливий для всіх українців. Я хочу подякувати особисто прем'єр-міністру Індії за те, що він розпочав свій візит вшанування загиблих наших українських діточок, яких забрала російська армія, яких вона вбивала своєю агресією. Я дуже дякую за це вшанування пам'яті українських дітей. Дякую за підтримку Індії, нашого суверенітету і територіальної цілісності. І впродовж цих 2,5 років я хочу подякувати особисто прем'єр-міністру Моді і народу Індії за те, що вони підтримували українських громадян гуманітарними пакетами, кількість їх 16. Дякую за цю підтримку. Питання закінчення війни і справедливого миру для України – це пріоритет. Ми провели нещодавно перший інаугураційний саміт миру. Я хочу подякувати за те, що Індія була присутня на цьому саміті. І сьогодні обов'язково однією з тем буде саме саміт миру, як ми можемо просуватися в цьому напрямку. Ми дуже очікуємо, що Індія зможе доєднатися до спільного комюніке інаугураційного саміту, і про це я буду говорити з прем'єр-міністром. Вчора, до речі, відбулася перша, а після саміту миру перша енергетична зустріч в онлайн-форматі. Ми дуже зацікавлені, щоб всі країни світу доєдналися до рішення всіх криз, які принесла ця війна. І енергетична зустріч сама по собі – це вже великий прогрес. Далі у нас зустріч щодо продовольчої безпеки і гуманітарної. На сьогодні ми погодили з стороною наших сьогоднішніх гостей, з Індією, погодили 4 документи в цей історичний візит прем'єр-міністра Моді між Україною і Індією. Це медична сфера, це співпраця в аграрному напрямку, це гуманітарні відносини, це культура. І підготовлена спільна заява за змістом візиту прем'єр-міністра і щодо розбудови стратегічного партнерства між нашими країнами, торгівлі між нашими країнами та військово-технічна співпраця. Все це має зміцнюватись. Я дуже за це дякую. Радий вас бачити. Слава Україні!
एक्सेलेंसी, हम लंबे समय से एक बात सुनते हैं कि युद्ध की सबसे पहली कैजुअलिटी ट्रूथ होता है, लेकिन जब आज मैं उन बालकों की स्मृति में बनाए हुए म्यूजियम को आपके साथ जाकर के अपने श्रद्धा सुमन अर्पित कर रहा था।
Your Excellency, we've been
Maidaan
talking about the war which has been going on for a long time, and the first casualty of the war is truth. Today, when I had an occasion to pay my respects to the children who had lost their lives, and I went to the memorial which was constructed in their memory along with you, my heart was filled with emotions, and my heart felt a great sense of grief. And the casualty of truth is because of the death of innocent children, and it's very painful for any civilized world, for all those people who believe in humanitarian values, for all those people who are sensitive to humanitarian values. Such incidents are totally unacceptable. In the whole world, for all those people who believe in humanitarian values, such incidents cannot be accepted.
कोई भी व्यक्ति इसको स्वीकार नहीं कर सकता है। एक्सेलेंसी, इस दर्दनाक परिस्थितियों के बीच भी
Your Excellency, despite those tragic circumstances, you welcomed my delegation and myself with such warmth. I convey my heartfelt gratitude to you for that.
मैं हृदय से आपका आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ। एक्सेलेंसी, आज का दिवस भारत और यूक्रेन के संबंधों के लिए एक बहुत
Your Excellency, today is a historic day in India-Ukraine relations. Today, for the very first time, an Indian Prime Minister is visiting the land of Ukraine. This on its own is a very historic event.
ये अपने आप में एक ऐतिहासिक घटना है। कल आपका नेशनल डे है। ये बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण दिवस है।
Tomorrow is your national day. It's a very important day, and on my own behalf and on behalf of the 1.4 billion people of India, I convey my very best wishes to you, and I hope and I pray for peace and prosperity of Ukraine.
और मैं कामना करता हूँ शांति के लिए, सुख और समृद्धि के लिए। एक्सेलेंसी, 2021 में ग्लासगो में मिले थे।
Excellency, in 2021, we had met for the first time in Glasgow. And from the very first meeting with you, I felt a very deep sense of friendship with you. And you very respectfully invited me to Ukraine. And at that time, I could not even realize that I would be visiting Ukraine under such circumstances.
मुझे ऐसी परिस्थिति में यूक्रेन आने की नौबत आएगी। एक्सेलेंसी, हमारे द्विपक्षीय संबंधों में
Your Excellency, despite the difficult circumstances, our bilateral relations are seeing good progress. And I can say that in such a tense environment, progress in our bilateral relations between India and Ukraine reflects the maturity of our bilateral relations.
ये प्रगति हम दोनों देशों की मैच्योरिटी को प्रतिबिंबित करती है। एक्सेलेंसी, मैं आज बड़े आदरपूर्वक मेरी उस भावना को व्यक्त करना चाहता हूं कि जब युद्ध के प्रारंभिक दिन थे,
Your Excellency, being in Kyiv today, I respectfully convey my very warm feelings and emotions on one particular aspect. When this war started, thousands of Indian children were stuck in Ukraine who had come here to study, and they were stuck in difficult situation. And the way you supported them, the way you helped them, and in such great sensitivity, you not only understood our concerns, but made all efforts to address our concerns. So for that, on my own behalf, on behalf of 1.4 billion people of India, and on behalf of those students who are stuck here and their families, I convey my heartfelt gratitude to you.
उस संकट की घड़ी से निकल करके आए हुए उन बच्चों के, उनके परिवारजनों की तरफ से आपका आज मैं हृदय से आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ। एक्सेलेंसी, आप भी भली भांति जानते हैं और पूरा विश्व भी जानता है कि युद्ध के समय हमने दो प्रकार की भूमिकाओं का रास्ता अपनाया।
Your Excellency, you are well aware, and the entire world knows that regarding the war, India has had a twofold role in all of the situation. And we have tried to our best to fulfill our role. First is regarding from the humanitarian perspective. In the time of crisis, there are several types of requirements that the people of Ukraine needed, and to fulfill those requirements, we adopted a humanitarian point of view, and we tried our best to make those demands and requirements fulfilled. And I can assure you that in the future as well, going ahead from this humanitarian point of view, we will always stand with you, and you will find us 2 steps ahead.
भारत हमेशा हमेशा आपके साथ खड़ा रहेगा और 2 कदम आगे चलेगा। एक्सेलेंसी, हमने जो दूसरा मार्ग चुना, वो दूसरा मार्ग है युद्ध से दूर रहने का।
Your Excellency, the second aspect of our role has been to stay away from the war. But it is with full conviction that we stayed away from the war, but it never meant that we were just an indifferent bystander. We never adopted that role. We were never neutral, and we had a side right from the first day. Our side was peace. Excellency, I come from the land of Buddha, and in my land there is no place for war. I come from the land of Mahatma Gandhi, who showed the path of peace to the entire world.
हम महात्मा गांधी की धरती से आते हैं, जिसने पूरे विश्व को शांति का संदेश दिया है। एक्सेलेंसी, मैं आज जब यूक्रेन आया हूं तब मैं 140
Your Excellency, today when I have come to Ukraine, I have come with the feelings and sentiments of 1.4 billion people of India, and their sentiments are inspired by humanity. So coming to the land of Ukraine, I have come with the message of peace.
शांति का संदेश लेकर के आया। Excellency,
Your Excellency, a few days ago, I hosted the 3rd Voice of Global South Summit, in which 120 countries participated. So on behalf of those countries of Global South as well, I have come with the message of peace. Your Excellency, you well understand and are aware that as far as the peace is concerned, India has made its proactive contribution towards that. And you're also aware that our approach has been people-centric. And I want to tell you and the entire world, this is our conviction and our commitment, and we say it very loudly and clearly. The message is that we respect we support the respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity. This is of utmost priority to us. 2 years ago in Samarkand, when I had met President Putin, I had told him, looking into his eye in front of the media, that this is not the era of war.
मैं पिछले दिनों रशिया की मुलाकात के लिए गया था। वहां भी मैंने साफ शब्दों में अपनी बात कही है कि किसी भी
And last month as well, when I visited Russia to meet President Putin, I told him very clearly that problems cannot be resolved on the battlefield. The only way of resolving problems is through dialogue and through diplomacy, and that without losing any further time, we should move towards that direction.
बिना समय गंवाए उस दिशा में आगे बढ़ना चाहिए। दोनों पक्षों को
Both sides will have to sit together and to look for ways to come out of this crisis.
रास्ते तलाशने होंगे। एक्सेलेंसी, आज हम जब रूबरू मिल रहे हैं तब
Your Excellency, today we are meeting in person, and I have come to the land of Ukraine, and I have just visited a memorial dedicated to the children who were martyred in the war, and my heart is filled with emotions and sentiments. So today I would like to have an in-depth discussion with you on the way forward towards peaceful resolution.
विशेष रूप से चर्चा करना चाहूँगा। एक्सेलेंसी, मैं आपको विश्वास दिलाना चाहता हूँ कि शांति की हर
Your Excellency, I assure you that for all those efforts being made towards peace, India is ready to make its proactive contribution, and I personally, as a friend, if there is any role that I can play, I would very much like to play that role towards peaceful resolution.
जरूर करना चाहूँगा। एक मित्र के रूप में मैं आपको विश्वास दिलाता हूँ। एक्सेलेंसी, मैं आज जब आया हूँ, कल नेशनल डे।
Your Excellency, I have come on the eve of your National Day, and therefore I would like that all of us work towards early restoration of peace, and India will be ready to make its proactive contribution towards that objective. And once again, I convey my heartfelt gratitude to you for the warm welcome extended to me.
आपके स्वागत सत्कार के लिए मैं हृदय से आपका बहुत बहुत आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ।
So there you have it. You know, both the leaders meeting, Prime Minister Modi with Zelensky, and a very warm and cordial kind of an exchange there. A kind of confidence building which was extremely clear by what both the leaders spoke. They spoke about, you know, peace when it comes to a war-torn region like Ukraine, and Prime Minister Modi particularly stressing on the fact that he's from the land of the Buddha and the Mahatma, that being Mahatma Gandhi, and how he is somebody who does not encourage any kind of war in any part of the world. And there you see both the leaders who, before they met, of course, those are the visuals on your screens, and this is just before both of them sat down. And of course, first they shall go inside for a photo op, and then there you have it, Zelensky and Prime Minister. What a historical visit indeed, first by any Indian's head, for any Indian Prime Minister to have gone to Ukraine. And this particular meeting is going to have, this is a strategic meeting, of course, and also several other decisions which will be taken, and we shall bring you up to speed on what really this comes, whether this comes to fruition or not. Meanwhile, Dr. Jaishankar is also speaking. Let's cut across, and then we shall bring more on this exchange between Zelensky and Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Such as respect for territorial integrity and sovereignty of states. As I said, they spoke about the summit on peace in Ukraine. The last meeting was in June of 2024. In terms of our own positions, I think I read out for you that particular paragraph. I would say, in addition to that, there are references in the joint statement to our bilateral cooperation, to trade, to commerce, to education. We signed 4 agreements today. One was in regard to community development projects in Ukraine. One was in regard to drug control standards and harmonization. One was on cultural exchange, and the 4th one was agriculture. Finally, let me just say that we have been, in the past, been providing humanitarian assistance to Ukraine. I think 17 consignments so far have been delivered. These are largely in the medical, on the medical side. And today we handed over the Bhishma. Let me have a look at that. Where is that? These are cubes which contain medical support equipment, which are very effective, very compact, very deployable in many ways. So these cubes with a total weight of 22 tons were handed over today, along with 10 gensets. So I think this would probably be a fair summary of today's discussions. I'm sure you will have some questions or thoughts. I'd be happy to answer them.
We open the floor now, and please do introduce yourself before you ask the question. So let's start there. Rishikesh.
Hi sir, Rishikesh from Press Trust of India. So we have seen in the past that Ukraine side has made a very strong statement on the issue of India's import, especially on gas, energy or coal. So when today Prime Minister meets with President Zelensky, did President urge India to curb its imports from Russia?
Okay. Can I take a few, because I'd like to cover as many people as possible. So Vishnu.
Sir, Vishnu Shok from NDTV. Were there any specific proposals made by us, by India, to Ukraine in terms of a possible immediate path towards ending the conflict?
So question is specific proposals and immediate path.
Specific
proposals and the adjectives in question are specific proposal and immediate path.
Yes, sir.
Right, got it.
You can take one more question.
Yeah, sure, I'll take 3.
As a negotiator between Ukraine and Russia. However, Bloomberg reports that your side is willing to deliver some message from Russian side to Ukrainian. Was there any specific message today from Putin to Volodymyr Zelensky? And the second question, what is the stance of the India on Chinese peace plan? Because India respects Ukrainian territorial integrity and it doesn't include it. It didn't include it in Chinese peace plan.
Can I go with these 3 answers? Sure. Okay. So the first question, did the issue of India's energy trade with Russia come up? Yes, it did. I wouldn't say at great length, but what we did was to explain to the Ukrainian side what was the energy market scenario. The fact that today many energy producers are sanctioned, making the market potentially very tight, and why actually today there is a compulsion, in fact not just a compulsion, I mean why it is in the interest of the international economy as a whole that oil prices remain reasonable and stable. On Vishnu, your question, in a way, they kind of feed into each other. Look, I would put it this way. Clearly, we've been having our own thinking and discussions with many other countries. Also, because the Prime Minister was recently in Moscow, there were detailed discussions there, which we have been quite public about. So he shared, I think, many of the thoughts and the substance of these discussions. I wouldn't necessarily characterize it in the way in which you said Bloomberg had described it. But in turn, I think we heard from President Zelensky at some length what his own views were, about these issues, but what his own views were about the subject as a whole. I mean, not necessarily to anything which we may have told him, we may have heard in Moscow. So it was a very back and forth discussion. To my mind, there was certainly I'm sure that there was information which we, obtained here, and I'm sure we also perhaps may have brought up points or flagged issues which may or may not have been people would have been cognizant of here. The way we ended was that at the end of the discussion, I think there was a sense that this is a very complex issue. I mean, yes, certainly we have this one particular format, the peace in Ukraine format. But as I said, it is the view not just of India, but certainly of India as well, that there are, there could be multiple ways of approaching this issue. Now, you asked me for one of those examples, and I'm not comparing here. I'm just responding to your particular question. Regarding, whatever China may have proposed, I think it's not for us to respond. I think it is for the parties concerned to respond. So I would suggest you direct that question at the Ukrainian government.
Can we have a question here? Rishabh, please.
Minister, good afternoon. Rishabh from Times Now. Sir, you spoke about Ukrainians asking us to be part of the Ukraine Peace Summit that last happened in Switzerland. has there been any proposal from Ukraine to India to try and convince Russia to be on that table? Because Russia last time was not part of the peace summit in Switzerland. So has there been any talks from Ukrainian side that India should try and get Russia also on the table?
Siddhant.
Sir, Siddhant from Vion. Did the Ukrainian side briefed on the Kursk incursion? Sir, this side. Did the Ukrainian side briefed on the Kursk incursion? And my second question is, PM paid his homage tributes to the victims, the children who died in the war. The Prime Minister also mentioned this to President Putin 2 months ago in Moscow. So what was the message in terms of Prime Minister paying his homage to the children?
Please.
Thank you for the question. Minister Nick Beek from BBC News. You talked about Prime Minister Modi's visit to Moscow last month, and a lot of people here were very upset to see that embrace between the two leaders. Also, they were quite upset to see India overtake China in terms of the biggest importer of Russian crude oil. And also, they say they're disappointed that there hasn't been an explicit condemnation of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. So, in light of that, I'm just wondering whether you had difficulty today persuading President Zelensky that India is not favouring Russia, but is indeed pursuing a policy of non-alignment. And secondly, because of that meeting in Russia last month, I think Prime Minister Modi is probably the most significant, influential world leader to have spoken to both sides recently. What personal role could he play in some sort of pursuit of peace? Thank you.
Yours was the first question. In terms of the peace in Ukraine summit, it was discussed at some length because much of what President Zelensky said revolved around, not everything, but a significant part of it. Now, where they go, at the end of the day, it's their initiative. Okay, it is their initiative in which we have taken part. I mean, if you look at it from at every stage of that initiative, when it started in Copenhagen, his predecessor was there. Then the NSA went into Jeddah. The deputy NSA went to Riyadh and to Davos. Similarly, the hybrid formats in Doha, even at Bergenstock, we have been represented at that level. So we have been represented there, but we also agree on some parts of it and don't agree necessarily on all of it. So I think there was a very open discussion on this. Now, what will be the next steps? Who exactly will come? Will the Russians come in, not come in? That's really not an issue for us to take a call. I mean, that's an issue which presumably the government of Ukraine is dealing with. Siddhant, regarding your issue on Kursk, yes, I would say the military situation, including some recent developments, did come up for discussions. In terms of the visit, what you asked about the homage, particularly to the children. Look, in any conflict, obviously, any death is something which is, to put it mildly, regrettable. And if it is a civilian death, a humanitarian death, even more so. And if it is a child's death, even more so. So I think it is something which touches everybody. And even, when we were in Moscow, it is a subject on which the Prime Minister spoke publicly. So I think it was very natural for him to come and express that feeling in some kind of gesture. Regarding your question, in our part of the world, when people meet people, they are given to embracing each other. It may not be part of your culture, but I assure you it's part of ours. So in fact, today I think I saw the Prime Minister also embrace President Zelensky, and I've seen him do it with a number of other leaders in a number of other places. So I think perhaps we have a slightly cultural a gap here in terms of what these courtesies mean. In terms of what you asked about the oil issue, look, India is a big oil consumer. It's a big oil importer because we don't have oil. Now, it's not like there's a political strategy to buy oil. There is an oil strategy to buy oil. There's a market strategy to buy oil. So the figures of where we get our oil imports go up and down. It depends on the state of the market. But it would definitely, I think the fact that the market is tight, that today big suppliers like Iran and Venezuela, who used to supply India, are constrained from operating freely in the markets, I think is a factor which needs to be taken into account. Regarding the conversation between the Prime Minister and President Zelensky, I think it was a perfectly convivial conversation. I think it was very constructive. I think there was a lot that we said which he heard with a great deal of attention. He knows that we mean well by Ukraine. He knows that we are today very, very keen that this conflict should come to an end. And essentially what the message from our side to him, which surely would have not come as a surprise to him, is that, if there is anything that we can do in any way, in sort of upfront or behind or supporting somebody, it's the objective that we are interested in rather than the process. We are willing to do whatever we can because we do think that the continuation of this conflict is terrible obviously for Ukraine itself and for the world as well. Yes, sure. Uma Shankar.
विदेश मंत्री जी, आपने बताया कि 32 साल बाद राजनयिक रिश्ते के बाद प्रधानमंत्री पहली बार यहाँ पे भारत के आए. क्या रेसिप्रोकल बेसिस पे एक इनविटेशन राष्ट्रपति जेलेंस्की को भी दिया गया है, और अगर दिया गया है तो उनकी तरफ से क्या इस पे रिस्पांस रहा?
Can I have a question here? Last.
Thank you. The peace formula proposed by the Ukrainian president has already mentioned today, and I want to ask you how interested is India in participating in the implementation of this formula, and if yes, which of the 10 points of this formula would India be ready to support? And I have one more question. I want to ask you, what is India's position on the application of international sanctions against Russia, and under what conditions India would join a board sanctions regime or some part of it? Thank you.
Just wanted to join the last question, if you don't mind, because
I think you're being a bit unfair. There's somebody behind you who hasn't asked a question. With that.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Ashok from ANI. I have a question that Prime Minister Modi's visit to Ukraine has sent a positive sign to the world, including India. Will this is the favorable time for the Indian students to return Ukraine for their study?
Okay. Who was the first question? Hema Shankar. हाँ, आपका सवाल जो था. I'll do it in both Hindi and English. देखिए, ऐसा था कि पहली बार भारत के प्रधानमंत्री 1992 के बाद यूक्रेन आए हैं, तो ये अपने आप में इसका महत्व होता है. तो जैसे ऐसे समय में ये भी स्वाभाविक है कि प्रधानमंत्री जो हैं वो अपने होस्ट को, प्रेसिडेंट जेलेंस्की को निमंत्रण देते हैं. इस बार उन्होंने दिया था, तो हमारी अपेक्षा है कि उनके सुविधा के अनुसार राष्ट्रपति जेलेंस्की जो है भारत में उनका विजिट भी होगा. So essentially what I said was that Prime Minister was here for the first time after 1992. It is natural on such occasions that he extends an invitation, which he did in this case. So we expect that at some point, as per his convenience, President Zelensky will visit India. On the second question, the peace formula. Look, we've been involved and with the multiple meetings of the summit, starting from Copenhagen, as I said, at a very senior level. How to take it forward? I think there is a diversity of views. I mean, there is a diversity of views, not just involving India. I think many other countries who have also taken part in this summit have their particular views on how to take it forward. Now, what we heard from the Ukrainian side today was their view and, their expectation on how to go forward, which, is understandable. But I think in terms of our view is that any exercise, if it has to be productive, will naturally have to involve the other party concerned. I mean, it cannot be obviously, a completely one-sided or a one effort which would fructify. Regarding sanctions issue, I would say, look, generally, in India, we do not impose sanctions on any country. It's not part of our political, diplomatic history. If at all there are sanctions, I mean, we generally look at UN sanctions. Those are the sanctions that we respect. In terms of the last question, students, look, at the peak, there were more than 20,000 students here. Obviously, 2022, many of them went back. Some have come back. They come back because, there are various academic compulsions on them. My understanding is that there are roughly somewhere between 2,000 to 2,500 students, am I correct? Currently. I mean, at this time, if you're asking us what advisory would we give them, we would still urge caution because, you can see there is a conflict on. I mean, it depends again on the place, on the city. But our hope again is that, this conflict will come to an end, life will return to normal, and that we will see the full return of Indian students in due course.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the close of this session. Thank you very much for your presence. Sir.
All right, so we heard Dr. Jaishankar answering questions and also laying out the plan that India has going forward, not only with Ukraine, but also Russia and China. In the studio with me is my colleague Aditya Raj Kaul, and let's decode this for the viewers. Aditya, historic visit, first time ever by a head of state from India. What do you make of this historic visit?
Well, one simple and crisp answer, Sudha, is that this is how Indian foreign policy is shaping. It is more confident, it is more vibrant, and it is standing its ground.